The feds have reversed course on their decision to freeze risk adjustment payments. This came in an announcement from CMS Administrator Seema Verma. Let's first refresh ourselves of how we got to this point. We're talking about risk adjustment payments that are made to insurance plans that have a little bit riskier risk pool, a little sicker risk pool, from insurance plans that have a little bit healthier risk pool to try to spread that risk. Part of the original Affordable Care Act meant to be a permanent feature in the market and premium stabilization part of the Affordable Care Act. Other parts of the Affordable Care Act trying to do something similar were risk corridors and reinsurance, parts of the Affordable Care Act that were more temporary and very contentious. The insurance plans at issue in risk adjustment payments were owed about $10 billion. The federal government announced that they would not be making those payments. They said that the formula that they used was appropriate to determine how much insurance plans were owed. This went to court. The district court in Massachusetts said, yep, the formula the feds are using is just fine. Payments should continue. The district court in New Mexico said the formula the feds are using, statewide average premium was their formula designation, is not fine. That's not fair to the insurance companies that are owed a lot more money to use a statewide average. That district court ruling was something the feds were not too happy with. They wanted the judge to reconsider or to vacate his decision, and to put a little pressure on, they said, and therefore we're freezing payments. Because of this district court decision in New Mexico, we're not making any payments at all. Now, as you can imagine, there was a lot of feedback to that decision. About $10 billion was frozen. And the Fed said, well, our hands are tied. We won't be making any payments until this litigation is resolved. Well, then in a final rule issued July 24th, the feds reversed course. They said, we're just kidding. We're going to pay the $10 billion to the insurance companies that are owed this money. Seema Verma said, well, we're going to mitigate some of the uncertainty caused by this New Mexico litigation. Now, notice that there were other options that the feds could have taken instead of just freezing the money. They could have just clarified their rationale for using the formula like they did. And they, in fact, had already done this for future payments. They justified why they used the formula they did. People still took issue with it, but at least they checked all the boxes explaining why they used that statewide average. So what they ultimately did when they decided to unfreeze the payments was justify to the formula they used. So they issued a final rule that said, this is why we used the formula we did. They skipped proposed rulemaking steps. They didn't take public comment. They just issued a final rule and said, this is why we're using the formula. And now insurers can expect their payments in October. So a lot of ado about nothing, perhaps. Some insurance companies were really going to take a hit by not getting those risk adjustment payments. Other insurance companies, it wasn't going to bother them too much anyway. But the timing was what was causing the problems. This came at the time, the decision to freeze payments came at the time when insurers are supposed to be setting their rates for 2019. You can bet those insurers that are supposed to be owed millions of dollars, we're going to try to recoup those expenses in 2019 rates. So this decision by the feds to freeze payments caused quite a stir, and it was good that they were able to resolve it quickly, but it never needed to happen this way. You can read that final rule that was issued without public comment, without proposed rulemaking. You can see the justification the feds do give for using their statewide average formula for determining how risk adjustment payments are made. And these are for those payments that were owed for 2017 that will now be made in October. If you have questions or want to talk more about risk adjustment, you can send us an email, and you can do all of that at healthwatchwisconsin.org.